There's a moment early in the morning, before either of you fully wakes up, when a hand finds another hand under the blanket without either of you deciding to reach for it. Nothing happens beyond that. No words. No plans. Just two hands, quietly holding on, while the room stays gray and half asleep around you. That moment doesn't feel like desire. It feels like something else entirely, something closer to relief. Compare that to another morning, years earlier, the first time you woke up next to someone new. Every small sound felt loud. Every movement felt significant. You noticed the exact shape of their shoulder, the way light crossed the room, the sound of their breathing like it meant something enormous. Nothing about that morning felt like relief. It felt like standing at the edge of something, waiting to see what would happen next. Both mornings involved another person lying beside you. Both mornings involved something you might casually call love. But anyone who has lived through both knows they were not the same feeling at all. You've probably felt both sides of this without ever separating them clearly in your mind. The rush of wanting someone the first time you meet them, your pulse doing something strange before you've even learned their last name. And then, much later, a completely different feeling, sitting beside someone in comfortable silence, not wanting anything at all except for them to stay exactly where they are. Somewhere along the way, people started treating these two feelings as if they were the same thing wearing different clothes. They aren't. Think about the last person you ever had a crush on before you knew anything real about them. Maybe it was someone at school, someone across a room, someone whose voice you hadn't even heard yet. Your body reacted before your mind had any information to work with. That reaction wasn't really about them. It was about a shape, a smell, a gesture, something instinctive firing off long before any actual connection existed. Now think about someone who has known you for years. Someone who has seen you sick, exhausted, embarrassed, ordinary. The feeling you have for that person isn't built on a spark. It's built on evidence, on thousands of small moments where they stayed instead of leaving. Those are two different systems running inside you, and they don't always agree with each other. Picture two teenagers sitting close together on a porch step, shoulders touching, saying almost nothing. Neither of them fully understands what they're feeling yet. One of them assumes the nervous energy in their chest means they're in love. The other assumes it too. Years later, they'll barely remember each other's faces, but at the time, the feeling was completely convincing. It felt permanent. It wasn't. That confusion isn't unique to teenagers. Adults make the same mistake constantly, just with better vocabulary to disguise it. Picture a different scene, years later. A wedding, maybe, or an anniversary. Dinner, two people clinking glasses across a table, telling the story of how they first met as if it explains everything that came after. It doesn't, not really. The spark that brought them together explains almost nothing about what kept them together for the next 20 years. Something else took over somewhere along the way, something that rarely gets mentioned in the story people tell about how they fell in love, because it isn't a story with a clean beginning. It just quietly accumulated, one ordinary day at a time, until it became the sturdier thing holding the whole relationship up. A person can feel intense physical attraction to someone they don't even like as a human being. Their heart rate says one thing. Their gut says something else entirely. And a person can also feel completely devoted to someone they're not attracted to at all anymore, someone they'd still choose every single day, not because of any spark, but because of everything that spark eventually turned into. If love and desire were the same experience, that split wouldn't be possible. But it happens constantly, quietly, in bedrooms and kitchens and long car rides where nobody says anything about it out loud. Consider what actually happens in a new relationship, in the earliest weeks. Everything feels urgent. You want to be near them constantly. Small details about their voice or their laugh become almost unbearably important. This isn't love yet, even though it often gets called that. It's closer to a fire catching quickly, bright and consuming, burning through fuel it hasn't earned yet. Real closeness takes longer to build, and it usually looks far less dramatic. It looks like someone remembering exactly how you take your coffee without asking. It looks like a hand resting on your back in a crowded room, not out of urgency, but out of habit. It looks like silence that doesn't need to be filled. The fire and the foundation aren't opposites. They're just different processes, running on different timelines, built by different parts of you. Think about how strange it is that the beginning of a relationship, the part everyone romanticizes the most, is usually the part built on the least actual information. You don't know yet how they handle bad news. You don't know if they'll show up when it matters, or disappear the moment things get difficult. All you have is the fire, and the fire is convincing enough on its own that most people mistake it for proof of something deeper. Sometimes it becomes that deeper thing. Often it simply burns out, leaving two people staring at each other, waiting to see if anything real was underneath it. Here's where it gets more complicated. Physical closeness can create the illusion of emotional closeness almost instantly. Two people can share something intensely intimate physically and still be near strangers emotionally, still unable to trust each other with anything difficult, still guessing at what the other person actually needs when things go wrong. The body moved faster than the relationship did. The reverse happens just as often. Two people can build years of real trust, real history, real safety, and find that the physical spark that once defined the relationship has quietly dimmed, sometimes disappearing almost entirely, while the bond underneath stays exactly as strong, sometimes stronger than it ever was. If desire and love were the same thing, neither of these situations should be possible. They happen anyway, over and over, in relationships everywhere. Watch what happens after a difficult breakup. People often say they still love someone even after the relationship is completely over, even after physical closeness has stopped entirely. That lingering feeling isn't confusion. It's evidence that whatever they built together doesn't automatically disappear just because the physical part did. Something else was always running underneath it, something slower, something that doesn't switch off the moment circumstances change. Meanwhile, physical attraction can vanish overnight, triggered by something as small as one careless comment, one moment of feeling truly unseen. Desire is fast to arrive and fast to leave. Whatever the deeper bond is made of, it moves at an entirely different speed. You can see the same pattern in the opposite direction, too. Two people can lose almost everything else in a relationship, the trust, the conversation, the sense of being known, and still find themselves physically drawn to each other out of pure habit or memory, even while everything else quietly falls apart around them. That kind of pull can feel confusing, almost like proof that something is still working. It isn't proof of very much at all. Bodies remember rhythms long after the rest of a relationship has stopped functioning. This is easiest to notice in long marriages, the ones that last decades. Ask anyone who has been with the same person for 30 or 40 years what keeps them together, and rarely will the first answer be about attraction. It's usually about being known. About someone who remembers your entire history, who has watched you fail and stayed anyway, who has become less like a spark and more like a room you always know how to find your way back into, even in the dark. Watch how they talk about the early years compared to the later ones. The early years get described in bursts of feeling, breathless stories about how they met, how certain they felt, how the whole world seemed to narrow down to one person. The later years get described differently, in small specific images instead. The way he always double-checks the door is locked before bed. The way she still saves him the last piece of anything sweet without being asked. Those images don't sound romantic in the traditional sense. They sound like something quieter and, in their own way, far more durable. That room isn't built by desire. Desire opens the door sometimes. It doesn't build the walls. Think about the people in your own life who fall into each category. Someone you wanted intensely but couldn't have built anything lasting with. Someone you'd trust with anything, even if the spark between you never really existed at all. Most people, if they're honest, can name both kinds without much effort, because both feelings are real, both matter, and neither one is a lesser version of the other. They're simply answering different questions. One asks, do I want this person right now? The other asks, will this person still be here when it's hard? Now come back to your own life, to whatever relationship you're in or remembering right now. Think about the difference between wanting someone in a given moment and needing them to simply exist in your life, present or not, touching you or not. One of those feelings can burn out completely and leave the other one standing untouched. That's not a flaw in how people love each other. It might be the entire point. If everything ran on the same single feeling, relationships would collapse the instant that one feeling faded even slightly. Instead, most lasting relationships are quietly held together by several different things at once, desire being only one of them, often the loudest, rarely the strongest. Go back to that early morning moment, the hand finding another hand under the blanket without a single word passing between you. Notice, now, what that gesture actually contains. It isn't asking for anything. It isn't building toward anything. It's simply confirming that someone is still there, the same way they were yesterday, the same way they likely will be tomorrow. That's not desire announcing itself. That's something quieter, something that was there long before the spark first appeared, and something that, more often than people expect, is still there long after the spark has gone completely silent. Maybe that's the real difference, in the end. Desire announces itself loudly, every single time. This other thing rarely does. It just stays.